In July 2014, Lars Mittank, a 28-year-old German tourist, was said to disappear under mysterious circumstances near Varna Airport in Bulgaria. His case has become one of the most talked-about disappearances in recent years, particularly due to the chilling footage that were released after his disappearance. What makes Lars's story so compelling is the strange behavior he exhibited leading up to his vanishing and the unanswered questions about what happened to him. He was 28 years old when he traveled to Bulgaria with a group of friends for a vacation. They stayed at the Golden Sands Resort near Varna, a popular beach destination. The trip appeared to be typical at first, filled with fun activities like swimming, playing football, and going out to bars. However, things took a strange turn on the 6th of July, the day before they were supposed to fly home. Lars had a disagreement with some other German nationals at a bar over football. This confrontation escalated into a physical fight where he claimed to have been beaten by 4 men. He also sustained a ruptured eardrum and an injured jaw. After the fight, Lars saw a doctor who advised him not to fly because of his injuries. While his friends decided to leave for home as planned, he chose to stay behind, booking a room at a budget hotel near the airport. This was when his behavior began to raise alarms. On the 7th of July, Lars called his mother in a distressed state. He whispered that people were trying to kill or rob him and asked her to cancel his credit cards. He also mentioned that the people who were after him were getting closer. Surveillance footage from the hotel shows him pacing nervously, peering out windows, and even hiding in an elevator. At 1 a.m., he left the hotel for an hour, but what he did during that time remains a mystery. On the morning of 8th of July, Lars contacted his mother again, expressing increasing paranoia. He texted her to let her know that he had arrived at Varna Airport, but things took an even stranger turn when he went to see the airport doctor. The doctor, Kosta Kostov, described Lars's behavior as erratic and nervous. During their consultation, Lars expressed doubts about the antibiotics he had been prescribed for his injuries. According to Kostov, Lars became visibly agitated and began to tremble. In a state of panic, Lars exclaimed, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here," before abruptly fleeing the doctor's office. He left behind all his belongings, including his wallet, mobile phone, and passport. What followed is captured on airport security cameras. Lars was seen running out of the terminal, climbing over a fence, and heading into a nearby forest. The footage shows him sprinting away, and after that, there were no further confirmed sightings of him. His sudden and dramatic flight from the airport left everyone confused and alarmed, as he was never seen again. The video footage of Lars fleeing the airport would go on to be widely viewed, making him one of the most famous missing persons cases on YouTube. There has also been much speculation about what could have caused Lars's strange behavior. Some people, including his mother, believe that his symptoms may have been a result of a rare side effect from the antibiotic cefuroxime, which he had been prescribed for his injuries, though the doctor at the airport insisted that Lars had not been taking the medication. Despite extensive efforts by the police and Lars's family to uncover what happened to him, his disappearance remains unsolved. Lars's mother hired a private investigator to search for her son, and there were several unconfirmed sightings of him after his disappearance. In 2019, a truck driver believed he had given a ride to a man who resembled Lars, but this lead did not result in any concrete information. Lars Mittank's case continues to puzzle people around the world, and the unsettling footage of him fleeing the airport remains a haunting reminder of his strange and unexplained disappearance. On Christmas Eve 1945, the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia, was said to have been engulfed in devastating fire, and 5 of the Sodder children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, vanished without a trace. What should have been a tragic but straightforward case of lives lost in a house fire spiraled into a case of disappearance filled with unanswered questions. The Sodder family was a large, close-knit group led by George and Jenny Sodder, Italian immigrants who had built a comfortable life in America. They had 10 children and were well respected in their community. On that fateful Christmas Eve, 9 of the children were at home, excitedly preparing for the holiday. Late in the evening, after the family had gone to bed, a fire broke out. Jenny Sodder, the mother, awoke to the smell of smoke and quickly roused her husband. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children escaped the blaze. However, 5 of their children, ranging in age from 5 to 14, were trapped upstairs. George made frantic attempts to save them, breaking a window and cutting himself in the process. He tried to climb to the second floor but discovered that the ladder he always kept nearby was missing. Even more frustrating, the family's phone line had been cut, and their trucks, which George intended to use to reach the upstairs windows, mysteriously wouldn't start. The fire consumed the house in less than an hour, leaving little but ashes. Authorities initially concluded that the children perished in the fire, but there was one glaring problem. No human remains were found in the rubble. Fire experts later confirmed that a blaze of that intensity and duration would not have completely cremated human bones. The Sodders became suspicious. They began piecing together strange occurrences and inconsistencies, leading them to believe that the fire was not an accident and that their children may have been kidnapped. The ladder George kept by the house was found in a ditch some distance away. Additionally, the trucks that failed to start had been in good working condition the day before. Shortly before the fire started, the family was said to have received a strange phone call. A woman with an unfamiliar voice asked for a name they didn't recognize, then laughed and hung up. Several witnesses reported seeing the Sodder children after the fire. One claimed to have seen them in a passing car the night of the blaze. Another said they saw the children in a hotel in Charleston, West Virginia, with an unidentified group of adults. Decades later, Jenny Sodder received an envelope containing a photograph of a young man who resembled Louis, one of her missing children. The envelope had no return address, but the postmark was from Kentucky. The Sodder family refused to accept the official explanation and dedicated their lives to uncovering the truth. They distributed flyers, put up billboards, and hired private investigators to follow leads. The most iconic billboard stood along Route 16, bearing the children's photographs and a plea for information. Despite their relentless efforts, they never found conclusive evidence about what happened to their children. George Sodder passed away in 1969, and Jenny followed in 1989, still searching for answers. The surviving Sodder siblings carried on the fight, but eventually faded from the public eye. To this day, the fate of the Sodder children remains unknown. Their disappearance also remains one of the most haunting mysteries of our time. On the night of October 31, 2001, a 21-year-old student at Penn State University named Cindy Song attended a Halloween party with friends. After the party, around 4 a.m. on November 1st, she had left to walk home to her apartment, which was said to be a short distance from the party. However, Cindy never made it home, and that was the last time anyone saw her. Hours after leaving the party, Cindy was said to have called a close friend, leaving a brief but deeply unsettling voicemail. In the message, her voice sounded fearful, and she mentioned being in some kind of trouble. However, her words were unclear and cryptic, and it was difficult to tell exactly what was happening. The voicemail appeared really disturbing because it suggested she was in some form of danger, but it was never confirmed whether she was being threatened or simply scared for another reason. After her disappearance, a search was launched. Authorities reviewed footage from nearby areas and questioned people who might have seen her, but no solid leads turned up, and they couldn't say for certain what really transpired. Over time, rumors and theories emerged, including the possibility that Cindy had been abducted, or that she had been attacked by someone while walking home alone in the early hours. Although there was no evidence to support this, but the idea quickly gained traction. There was even speculation that she had been caught up in a random crime, but nothing definitive was ever found. But unfortunately, despite the extensive search and many efforts to piece together what had happened, Cindy Song's disappearance remains unsolved. As of today, her disappearance is still one of the most haunting, unsettling, and mysterious unsolved cases in recent memory. On the 9th of February 2004, a 21-year-old nursing student, Maura, emailed her supervisor, telling them she'd be away due to a family emergency. But there was no emergency. Instead, Maura packed up her belongings and hit the road in her old Saturn sedan. She was said to have been struggling and faced personal challenges that weighed heavily on her. By the time she was last seen, Maura had already traveled a few hours from her university. Around 7:30 p.m., a local bus driver spotted her car on a remote stretch of Route 112. It was an isolated area surrounded by dense woods, and her car had veered off the road, stuck in a snowbank. The bus driver stopped to check on her, but Maura, sitting alone in the vehicle, had declined his offer to help, saying everything was fine. The bus driver called the police anyway, concerned for her safety in the freezing weather. When officers arrived just minutes later, the scene was eerily quiet. Maura's car doors were locked, and her belongings, including a packed bag and a bottle of wine, were still inside. But she wasn't seen. Search efforts began immediately. Police combed the area, and search dogs were brought in. Strangely, the dogs were only able to track her scent a short distance before it disappeared. It was as if she had been plucked from the earth, leaving no trace. She hadn't told anyone exactly where she was going, but she had printed out directions to a small town in Vermont. Her family and friends were left in anguish as they pondered what could have happened to her. Rumors began swirling, believing Maura had staged her disappearance, escaping from her life to start fresh somewhere far away. Others feared she had fallen victim to foul play, perhaps picked up by someone who offered help but had darker intentions. Years passed, but Maura's disappearance remains one of the most haunting mysteries of our time. On the morning of September 20th, 1988, Tara, a 19-year-old college student from Belen, New Mexico, set out for her regular bike ride along State Road 47. She planned to return by noon for a game of tennis with her boyfriend, but she never came back. When Tara failed to return home, her mother, Patty Dole, went out searching and found pieces of Tara's Walkman and a cassette tape along the road. This discovery led her family to believe Tara had been abducted. Witnesses later reported seeing a truck following her during the ride, which heightened fears of foul play. The case took an eerie turn in June 1989 when a photograph was discovered in a parking lot in Florida. It depicted a young woman bound and gagged alongside a young boy, both lying in the back of a van. The girl bore a striking resemblance to Tara. Patty believed the woman in the photo was her daughter due to a scar on her leg, which matched Tara's. Despite these claims, the FBI was unable to confirm the identities of the individuals in the photo. Numerous theories have been proposed over the years. Some suggest Tara was kidnapped and killed shortly after her abduction, while others believe she was trafficked or held captive for a prolonged period. Speculation about the boy in the photo, who resembled another missing child named Michael Henley, added to the intrigue. Michael had disappeared in New Mexico in 1988, but his remains were later found, ruling out a connection to the photograph. Despite extensive investigations and widespread media attention, Tara's case remains unsolved. Her disappearance continues to haunt her family, who have tirelessly advocated for answers and justice. To this day, the photograph and the circumstances surrounding Tara's disappearance remain subjects of speculation, representing one of the most enduring and enigmatic cases of disappearance without resolution.